Welcome to the Fit Dad Nation podcast, forging strong fathers and raising a stronger generation. It's time to get up or shut up with your host, Steve Roy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Steve here, fitdadnation.com. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for listening. So, I want to talk about something that's extremely important for dads, especially as we get up into our 30s and 40s, and that is injury prevention. And before I do that, though, I just want to briefly mention something that we're up to in the Fit Dad Nation. That is our private membership program called the Fit Dad Nation Inner Circle. Right now, there's about 50 guys in there that are kicking some serious ass. We're doing monthly challenges. It's just a super active group with a lot of accountability. We're doing some good things. Guys are making a lot of progress. And I found that, being part of a band of brothers or a tribe of like-minded men makes all the difference. It really does. It makes a huge difference as far as whether you continue to succeed or you struggle, because so many of us try to do everything ourselves. We don't have that support network. And it's very difficult. We're busy dads and we have busy lives. So being part of a tribe or a bunch of guys that are in similar situations to you or doing the same things or trying to do the same things that you are, live fit, healthy, be around for a long time, clean up your lifestyle, clean up your diet. Having a group like that is really a phenomenal tool. I'll put some information about the Inner Circle in the show notes. So I'm 48 years old. I've been training for a long time, since my early 20s. And one of my focuses, especially in the last 10 years, has been injury prevention because, right, even though some of us are athletes or we're athletes, maybe we're fit, we spend a lot of time exercising, moving, our bodies age. There's nothing we can do about the fact that we are getting older. Our bodies are getting more wear and tear on it with each passing year. Right. And it's just, there's certain things we can do, of course, but we can't fight time. Right. We are getting older. But there are some things that you can do that can at least help you. I won't say prevent all injuries, because that's just not realistic. But it will give you a great shot at least doing a very good job at trying to do that. So, I spend a lot of time doing a lot of right things for my body, but still I've had injuries. I had a rotator cuff tear years ago. I have a sports hernia that's deep down in there. Just small things. You just go a little bit too hard just once, and that can be the difference. So you have to really pay attention to the small things in your body, read your body. And so right now I'm gonna run through a list of things that as kind of my checklist of how to stay healthy, how to avoid injury the best you can. Really, because, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about aesthetics, so that doesn't hurt. It's about, feeling good. It's about moving well. It's about being able to keep up with our kids and living longer and having a better quality of life. And when you're injured, all that comes to a screeching halt because you can't exercise, right? A lot of these times when you get hurt, whether it's, you pull your hamstring or hurt your knee or your lower back, that's really, really common. You're out, right? And then what happens when you're out? Typically, not everybody, of course, but typically you say, fuck it, right? And your diet goes back to shit. You say, well, since I can't work out, why am I going to eat healthy, right? And then it's just a vicious cycle, and you put on all that weight again, and it just leads to, now you're down on yourself, and now you feel like shit again, and now you're starting to look like shit again, and this happens over and over as you keep getting injured. So one of my main focuses with my clients and my guys in my group, injury prevention. Be careful, be smart. So here's the kind of the checklist that I'm going to give you. So first thing, I want you to do when you exercise is foam roll. Now, you've seen something about foam rolling at this point. It's everywhere. Just a couple of minutes, don't overdo it. 5 minutes before you work out or after you work out or both helps. It does. Basically, what the foam roller does is just breaks up knots in the soft muscle tissue. Okay, that's really it. So there's a million videos. I have got a few videos. I'll link to one for you. So 5 minutes is all you need. It does make a difference. I do it. I have my clients do it. And it does make a difference with your flexibility over time. So that's first and foremost. Number two, and this is a step that so many guys forget. Actually, I won't even say they forget it. They just don't want to do it because it sucks. And that's the warm-up. And that's not walking on a treadmill or jogging on a treadmill for a few minutes. That's a general warm-up. I'm talking about a full dynamic warm-up, which takes you through specific exercise, specific movements to get your body prepared for exercise. I spend about 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes warming up this way before every single workout. And this is probably one of the biggest pieces that's really saved me from a lot more injuries because I like to train pretty hard. I like to do a lot of pulling, a lot of pull-ups, heavy stuff, carries, a lot of different movements. And so I do a lot of dynamic type of stretching, and I have some videos on that as well. But if you're not doing this isn't walk on the treadmill, because that's what most guys do, right? They get on the treadmill for a few minutes, they do a few shoulder circles, and then they're ready to go. And that's not good enough. When you're 20, you can get away with it. When you're 40, 45, you can't. So make this an absolute priority, please. Do your dynamic workout or warm up every single time you work out. Okay? Excuse me. Number 3, stop lifting with your ego. So a lot of us want to lift heavy shit. That's just what we do as men, right? We want to lift heavy. And when we get to a gym, especially when we get to a gym and there are people watching, doesn't matter if it's men or women, we want to feel like, we're kicking ass. It's just what most people do. It's just a natural human instinct. And so, we tend to put on a little more weight than maybe we can handle. Some of us, especially those who were athletes in college, I wasn't, but those of you that are athletes in college or come from have a history of strength training or powerlifting or lifting, you want to be able to do what you did once before. Maybe it's 20 years ago, but deep down within you, you want to do that again, and so you're going to try. You have to avoid, you have to really check your ego at the door, because it's not about that. It's not about how much you can lift, how cool you look benching, whatever it is, 285 or squatting 315, whatever. You have to read your body, and especially if you've taken a long time off, like a lot of you have, you've taken a long time away from the gym. You can't just jump into it. A lot of people want to, but it's a really bad idea. Read your body and use your head. You're in this for the long term. Trying to get into it too fast, too soon, not always, but it certainly can and does lead to some kind of even a slight pull is going to sideline you, right? Or, if you tweak something in your lower back, for example, and you say, oh, it'll be fine, I'll just keep working through it. And then, a week later, you can't walk because your back is locked up, right? This shit happens all the time. You have to be much smarter about it. Please check your ego at the door. And also on the same lines, really watch your form. This has gotten a lot of attention on social media. There's a lot of form Nazis out there now, which is great because, 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. People were throwing weights all over the place. Now there's a lot of attention on proper form, which is great. But just keep reminding yourself that, right? Control your movements. Use, the right range of motion. You have to go super short or super full range of motion and overdo it either. There's a kind of a happy medium in there. But just go slow. When all else fails, unless you're training for some kind of specific event that requires you to be explosive, which, it's very few people listening to this are in that situation. You just use slow controlled movements. I like to use, 1 or 2 seconds on the concentric, which is up, and 3 to 4 seconds on the eccentric, which is on the way down. All right. You can't go wrong with that kind of protocol. All right. I would also try to avoid jumping on any kind of bandwagon, scouring the internet for cool programs that look fun or challenging or difficult. Because a lot of times, they're not designed for guys like us that are in our, late 30s and 40s. They're designed for young guys that can do whatever they want. They can just beat the shit out of their bodies. And I've done that many, many times. I did it for years. I just pound the hell out of my body. And it always came right back. but that's just not the case right now. We can't think that our bodies are going to react like that, because they're not. So, going and finding something on YouTube that's an hour-long killer-ass workout that's got you doing 600 or 700 reps and you're just beating the shit out of your body, probably not the best idea. So, instead, be smarter. I like to really focus on short workouts. I think that's huge. I think there's a lot to be said for keeping it short and intense. A lot of the workouts that I write, a lot of the workouts we have in our challenge, we do for challenges in our programs, are 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most. These are circuit type trainings, right? So, short, intense, short rest periods. And that's all you really need. And again, no need to drag this out. Strength workouts, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That's it, right? You can get more than enough done in that time. I promise you. Anything extra oftentimes is just basically the law of diminishing returns. You're just going to end up shooting yourself in the foot, overtraining, leading to possible injuries. And again, just a lot of it is ignorance. A lot of people just don't understand that you don't need to just beat the hell out of your body. You don't need to train to failure anymore. I don't even remember the last time I trained to failure. It's just not necessary. Again, unless you're training for something very specific, and there are some of you, yes, that are doing that. But for the general, fitness and just overall health and well-being, looking good, feeling good, cleaning up your lifestyle, there's no need to train to failure. Okay. One thing that people also tend to overlook is training in all the different planes of motion, right? So a lot of people just do, kind of one or two different motions, and they forget about probably one of the most important ones, which is, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the transverse plane, which is going to have you rotating, which, makes so much sense from just a movement standpoint, because, we're not, living in a single plane here where we're just, moving forward or backwards, right? Or up and down, right? A lot of what we do day to day is twisting and turning, picking shit up at odd angles, right? We got kids, we're chasing them, we're wrestling with them, whatever, we're playing sports, right? All that stuff is happening in that plane of motion, and we're not training in that plane of motion. So don't forget that. I don't even know if I have any resources myself on the planes of motion. I don't think I do, but you can Google that. Maybe I should create something like that. But just remember that, right? Just think about that when you're developing a program or working on a program. Make sure that it has some kind of rotational work in there. Another big one. This is really one of the biggest things, I think, is when we get on a program, we start training or exercising, we think strength, right? We think squat, deadlift, bench press, rows, right? And that's all fine and good, right? You need those exercises. Those are great exercises, compound exercises, the big heavy lifts. You can't go wrong with them, right? But what we're not doing, and this is something that I really focus on as well, is all the different aspects of a good full program. It's not just strength and conditioning, right? You need to include things like stability, right? Stability work is extremely important. I would say equally as important, if not more so, mobility. We do weekly mobility workouts in the Inner Circle now because it's that important. 8 to 10 minutes a day. Guys, if there's one thing I want to hammer home right now, if you're not doing dedicated mobility work, you absolutely 100% have to start. It doesn't have to be one of my programs. You can just find, something that's suitable for you and your limitations and your abilities right now. But getting on the ground, doing some light, even yoga, mobility work that's going to work that range of motion, work some of that strength in there. But basically, we're going to open up some of those, muscle groups, the hips and the hamstrings, the lower back and the thoracic spine area. Because, we spent years sitting, right? Being sedentary. A lot of us sitting at desks, sitting in cars, driving, right? We have weak muscles. We have tight muscles. We have rolled shoulders. We have forward head posture. We have shitty posture. We have an arch on lower back. We have super, super tight hamstrings. We have weak glutes. We have tight ankles and tight calves, right, from carrying a lot of extra weight. We have, weak hips. All those things can be helped immensely by just doing some mobility, right? And that's an integral part of a program. Absolutely. Google it, look it up, but start doing mobility work. You're going to want to add power to your exercise routine. You're going to want to do balance training. Again, something very overlooked is balance training. I mean, I've been in gyms for 20 some odd years. Rarely do I see someone doing any kind of balance training, any kind of single arm, single leg, anything that's really going to challenge you on a different level than just a straight up, let's stand on my 2 feet and do barbell curls, right? Instead, like I said, check the ego, forget that you need to lift a bunch of weight. Instead, how about stand on one leg, use a weight in one arm, and do a single arm, single leg bicep curl to an overhead press, for example, right? That's going to require you to not only balance, work on your ankle stability, right? It's going to make you work your midsection, right? Your core. You're going to have to fire up your glutes, right? You're going to have to lower your weight. You're going to have to keep your posture good, and you're going to have to really focus on the movement, right? And that's just one example of balance training, and that's a really, really important part of an overall program, okay? Let's talk about overtraining, right? You don't need to beat the shit out of yourself. You don't need to train for hours, right? I do believe that it's beneficial to train every day, and I don't mean being in the gym every day. I mean doing some kind of training, and we'll just call it exercise or training. We'll use those interchangeably, but whether it's walking, running, sprinting, mixing it up with some kind of workout, you're hiking, you're rucking, you're swimming, you're biking, you're throwing a medicine ball around, you're carrying heavy shit, you're throwing rocks, whatever it is. I've got a bunch of different shit on my YouTube channel that you can check out that has you doing all kinds of interesting workouts that challenge you in different ways. But keep it short, right? There's just no need, unless you're an endurance athlete, there's no need to just prolong your workouts. If you're hiking, fine. But all, regular workouts, strength workouts, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, plenty. Any kind of conditioning training, 20, 25 minutes is plenty. Even shorter is fine, depending on how intense it is. But if you get trapped in, the overtraining syndrome, you're going to start, losing your gains. You're going to start having issues with being tired and struggling with a lot of things. And it doesn't happen as much. I think more men are struggling with getting consistent with training at all versus overtraining, but it is something to be said. Another big piece of this, of staying injury-free, it's your recovery, right? And that comes back to mobility, that comes back to stretching, comes back to some of your lifestyle factors, right? And I've talked about this ad nauseum, and it's, I always say the same thing, that it's kind of boring to talk about, but covering the basics, getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right, which a lot of people aren't, moving as much as possible as part of the recovery process, right? De-stressing, drinking a ton of water, getting your, enough vitamins and minerals, getting an adequate amount of protein and healthy fats. Those types of basic things are a very big part of your recovery, right? It's going to make a big difference in how you feel. So if you're training hard, if you're doing the right things in the gym, but you're eating the wrong foods, you're eating a bunch of garbage that's not actually supporting your body and your immune system, your organs, your health, you're going to struggle. It's not going to allow your body it's not going to allow what it needs to recover properly. Yeah, and it is going to open you up to more injuries. And you have to think about this stuff. I've spent, quite a bit of time on the sidelines with a few nagging injuries. Currently, I still have a I even forgot what they call it. They didn't classify it as a sports hernia, but it was something very similar. But basically, it's a very, very small tear way down on my abdominal wall. But yeah, I did that like 3 or 4 years ago from sprinting. I let my ego get in the way, and I did this really hard work. I still remember the day I was at the gym. I did this really hard workout, and afterwards I was like, man, I feel fucking awesome. I want to keep going. I jumped on the treadmill, and I cranked it up to 12 miles an hour. And I'm fucking sprinting. And this is after like a good hard workout. And then I start sprinting, and then I stopped, and I was like, what was that? It felt a little weird. And so, yeah, as it turns out, it was this slight tear in my abdominal wall. I just overdid it. And, I just let myself, go a little bit, and that's all it takes, guys. And seriously, if you just focus on, and there's maybe 10 things I talked about, in the show, if you just focus on those things, again, nothing that's too difficult, right? You can work all of these things into your normal day-to-day life, right? If you can just follow these principles, follow these basic things, you're going to have a much, much higher likelihood of staying healthy, staying injury-free, and like I said, the big point is not, oh man, I got hurt, because people get hurt, it does happen. You get through it, you move on. But the bigger issue for me and what I do and what I coach is my job is to get men who aren't motivated or inspired to become inspired and to get started. That's where I feel like I help the most, is because I've seen so many men struggle with their life because, they're not fit, they're not healthy, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not exercising, and it's affecting every part of their life. I mean, it really affects their marriage, their job, their ability to parent the best way possible. And so when you're on it and when you're really crushing it and you're feeling awesome about yourself and you're moving well and you're strong and you feel good and you're confident, right? Those things play a huge role. You will be better in every part of your life, okay? And for me, it was becoming a better parent, better father to my girls. That's what was the inspiration for me. And I've seen it play out. I've become a much, much better father because I committed to myself. I committed to my health, and I'm dedicated to it now. And it's really paying dividends because my relationship is so strong with them, and they see how I live, and now they've adopted into their own life, and they're asking for things now. They're doing things on their own that are conducive to a healthy and fit lifestyle. And I love seeing that. And, it's not about weights, like how much do you weigh or what clothes can we fit into? It's just about feeling good and feeling strong and having the confidence. And so when you're injured, the big issue is you give up on everything else, right? Things are going great. Life is good. You're training hard. You're making progress. You're dropping the weight you want to drop. Your wife's noticing. Then you do something stupid. You pull a hamstring or you hurt your lower back, and doctor says no working out for 6 to 8 weeks, right? You're like, fuck this. What am I going to do, right? So you got to sit around. You got to take your pills. You got to put the heating pad on. You got to take Advil and whatever other pills they give you. You got to do some very, very light stretching, a little bit of movement, right? But you have to, then you stopped what you were doing. And then within about a week, you're like, God damn it. Guess what happens, right? You're like, screw it, right? And I've seen this play out so many times, guys, so many times. Screw it. Let's go get a pizza. Let's go to McDonald's. I'm going to start drinking those beers again. Why do I need to go and spend all this time preparing and cooking my food, eating healthy, really watching what I'm doing when I can't train, right? And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. All I'm saying is that it happens in a lot of cases, and then you're right back to square one. I don't want to see that. That's why it's so important, because then you're just regressing, you're starting over. Now you're back in the same place. I don't ever want to see that. So please, guys, take heed of what I have said today. Follow these basics, and I seriously hope that it helps you. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more information, check out the Fit Dad Basecamp group on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by fitdadnation.com. Until next time, keep kicking ass and taking the next step. You can do this, Dad.